Mirikitani. I like saying your name.
For better or for worse, it's memorable, right?
Dude. But you know the funny thing is, so, and I don't know if you noticed this, I feel that coming up in high school wrestling, all the best wrestlers had different last names. Not all of them, but a lot of them stuck out to me. Like I remember there was this kid, his last name was St. Louis. He really stuck out. There's Louis Caputo. He was a really, he was a really good. That's an interesting last name, and he was like a savage.
Looked like a librarian too.
He did look like a librarian.
Yeah.
That's true. But
Good kid though, and I mean went to Harvard, everything else.
yeah,
Smart
he
kid.
wrestled at Harvard, right?
Yeah, was an All-American.
Oh wow, yeah, that dude was a savage. He was a
Yeah.
stud. Just Gagliano.
Oh yeah, Jordan.
Yeah.
And Mike.
Yeah, just those names. They always just stuck out to me. And every time I saw one of those names, they were always stud wrestlers. And you, my friend, were a stud wrestler.
I was pretty good.
You're pretty good.
Yeah.
Dude, I had no idea. So it's funny because I've seen you for a long time just through the fighting scene.
Right.
I've always seen you in people's corners. I never knew why or who you were, though, to be honest with you.
You just thought it was affirmative action?
No, yeah, yep, that's exactly what it was. We had to meet the quota.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but, dude, just for the folks, if you don't mind, can you take me through just some of your background in wrestling? I mean, you're a 3-time state champion here in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want to mess it up because you're an All-American multiple fucking times, dude. And you're the first person to win Cadet Nationals, right, from Missouri? Did I mess that up?
I think I am. I
Okay.
can't. It's either me or Perler.
Okay.
But yeah, it was. Yeah. So yeah, I won state 3 times. I placed at cadets 4 times. Won it 1 year. Placed at juniors 1 time. Placed at the under 20s. Placed at the under 23s. Was a 2-time college All-American. And then placed first, second, and third at the IBJJFs.
Yeah, you just have this extensive background in wrestling and grappling.
Yeah, but I think it's, like, so I mean, for people that don't know, I do 2 of these a week.
2 podcasts?
Yeah.
With your show, right?
Yeah, and we do 1 a week where we just kind of talk about the world of wrestling, what's going on, and then 1 we do a long form interview like what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's whichever side you're normally on gets easier, right?
Right.
Like you're a good interviewer. If somebody interviewed you, you want to make sure you don't suck, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I do feel like I'm the worst person to interview.
Well, but you know what I mean, though. So
yeah.
I think where probably guys like me in their corner is, number one, my dad taught wrestling like a martial art. And what I mean by that is most people are like you're bigger than me. So in wrestling, like you push, I push, you're going to win.
Yeah.
My dad's like, if he pushes, you pull.
Yeah.
If he pulls, you.
He was teaching philosophies and principles.
Yeah, well, he's brilliant. He understands body movement and he understands balance better than anybody I know. And I mean, I know there's guys here in St. Louis who are black belts, but there's black belts and there's black belts.
Right.
There's levels to all this, right?
Dude, I mean, for a lot of guys, once you hit black belt, that's just really the beginning, even.
Right,
those
but
guys.
like, there's guys that'll say so and so was a stud wrestler, okay, and like he might have been a state champ. Like, to people that never wrestled, that seems like a big deal.
Yeah.
To those of us that were wrestled, we're like, well, he's not that good.
Yeah.
Like, that's not that big of a deal.
Right. That's true. Like, when you're really in an industry, you can actually parse out what really is impressive and isn't impressive.
Well, and like I hang out with guys that are world and Olympic champions, so anything I won is nothing in that platform,
Right, when you look at it in that context.
Yeah.
But isn't that the thing, though? Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah, I heard that saying the other day. But I also think you also hear this phrase like leveling up, right?
Yeah.
And so to level up, like you want to buy the cheapest house in the best neighborhood, right?
Yeah,
like
that's the way to look at it.
right?
Yeah.
Like if you wanted to learn about wrestling, you don't go into a wrestling room where you already know the most. You go in the wrestling room where you know the least.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So part of why I enjoy my podcast so much is I get to talk to guys that are at the top of the game.
Right.
And, I think I told you off air, like I always hope that really smart guys about wrestling go, that was awesome. Like, I wish I'd had it. I'm glad you asked that question because that's a question I've always wanted to ask.
Right. Yeah, I always love whenever I listen to just a good conversation and I think of a question and I really hope that they ask that and then they do.
Yeah.
It's very satisfying when they do.
So I usually write up 3 pages of notes of questions.
Do you really?
Uh-huh. But my mom's a communications teacher, and she taught me, she said, there's a difference between being an active listener and just waiting for someone to stop talking.
Right.
And she said, if you want to be good at this, be an active listener. I said, what do you mean? She goes, like, if I ask you, like, what got you started in jiu-jitsu? And let's just say you got beat up as a kid. Okay?
Okay.
So let's talk more about that instead of the next question, like, well, how long were you a white belt? You know, like, go
Yeah.
follow the path of the question. I can come back to it because I have it written down.
Right.
And then sometimes where you're taking me is way more interesting than what I had written down anyway. So
Right.
it doesn't matter if I get to that.
Yeah. I always look at that as conducting an interview and just hosting a conversation.
Yeah,
Because
that's a good way to differentiate it for sure.
that's how I look at it in my mind. Because if I'm just hosting a conversation, whatever naturally develops, we can just go that route.
Yeah.
So I'm always open to, if there's a tangent that comes up or something pops in your mind and you want to say it, like, do that.
Yeah, go there,
Because
sure.
that's cool too. Because to your point, they may take you down a way cooler path than maybe you had even intended just with your questions.
Yeah, so let me answer your question. So you were talking about why am I in corners? So MMA is basically 3 things, right? It's striking, it's wrestling, and it's jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know, and it's there's kickboxing, Muay Thai, all those kind of things. There's submission grappling, and there's grappling. There's offensive and defensive jiu-jitsu. There's jiu-jitsu off the bottom and the top. But in super broad categories, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think even people that hate wrestling understand that wrestling can determine where the fight goes,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
So if I'm better than you at wrestling and you're longer than me, then I'm not going to stand out there and strike with you.
Right.
I'm going to get to you and take you down, and you'll have to beat me with your jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, once I learned your wrestling background, it all made sense. It all makes total sense because I always look at there's like these different languages in the world, and most of them are spoken, but there's like this language to movement. Like, movement is a language, the way I look at it. And most people think about movement usually in regards to the kind of the first, like, sport or thing that they play, and then they kind of, for me, it's wrestling. So the first, like, movement actual language I learned was wrestling. So whenever I started doing jiu-jitsu or even with striking, I always relayed that back
Yes.
to the original principle that I learned into wrestling, and then that's how it all makes sense. So to have that understanding applies everywhere.
Yeah, so I started out in jiu-jitsu just coaching guys, like teaching wrestling at a jiu-jitsu gym.
Okay.
And then, I was friends with some of the coaches, and they'd ask me, and, I was trying to help them make money, and I didn't charge them, and just, people knew our last name, so people would come because of that. And, so it worked out good. It worked out good for them, and I enjoy coaching, so it was fine. Wrestling saved my life in a lot of ways, and if you want to talk about that later, we can. But, and then the guys were like, you should probably practice with us because some of the things you're teaching doesn't really work in jiu-jitsu because we can do this to you. And so I said, okay, that makes sense, right? Like, be coachable even if you're the coach, right?
Right.
And then my dad's got an extensive martial arts background, so he gave me a couple gis, so I started doing gi. Quick sidebar, I remember the first time I did gi with a purple belt.
How'd that go for you?
Well, it's really funny. I was at Rodrigo's gym,
Okay.
and the guy was fighting a guy who was a wrestler coming up. Like, there was a fight.
Okay. They were training for a
And
fight.
so they were like, well, will you go with him? I'm like, I don't even know how to keep score. Like, and the guy goes, if I don't break your arm or break your neck or make you tap, you win.
Okay.
Which I thought was, like, kind of a rude way to say it, right? Like, you could just say, if I don't submit you or tap you,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm here to help you. You don't need to try to injure me, right?
Right.
But we went for like 20 minutes, and he probably, in hindsight, scored 30 points, but I didn't know how to keep score.
Right.
He never got on top of me.
That's awesome.
Well, like,
A win's a win, bro. You got to take your
well,
wins
no,
where you
those
can.
guys were all laughing at him afterwards, and I was,
Yeah.
and they said, how'd you know how to get out of this and that? And one of my friends calls it spidey sense. Like, when you've wrestled a long time, you can feel stuff coming,
Right. Yeah.
like, one of the basic tenets of jiu-jitsu when you're on top is 2 arms in or 2 arms out. Like, almost all the bad stuff happens with 1 arm in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. One arm in, one arm out.
One
yeah.
arm, right? And that's what you guys are always trying to do from the bottom, right? Like, push, pull, get me to push, pull, react, and then now all of a sudden I'm in something,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
Or sometimes if you pull, just go with it.
Yeah.
and then the guy doesn't know what to do because if you're on
That's a hard concept to learn.
yeah, I guess like I was like
you just always known it.
no, I was just a blank slate. You know,
Okay.
like I play golf. Okay, I'm no good, but I play.
It's a fun sport.
It's a fun sport. But when I first learned to play golf, I held the club like a baseball bat, which is the wrong way to hold it. You know, you're supposed to hold the interlock or overlap. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I went from this to this, I got a lot worse before I got better.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody just started me here, I would have started worse, but just there wouldn't have been a up and down. There just would have been a progressive up.
Okay.
So with wrestling, for me in jiu-jitsu, I had a coach that didn't even teach me the 2 in, 2 out, and I said to him one day, I go, shouldn't you just like basically if I don't get both 1 in and 1 out, I'm okay, right? And like it was like it dawned on him, and I'm like, you're supposed to be the teacher, right?
Yeah.
You know?
That's interesting.
Yeah. In hindsight, the guy didn't know nearly as much as he acted like he did.
Yeah, you see a lot of that.
Yeah, a lot of
a
it.
lot of that in martial arts, unfortunately.
Yeah. So anyway, I was coaching these guys, and they're like, "Coach, you should fight in this tournament." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." They're like, "No, listen, you should fight in the world." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." You know, I'm
Yeah.
like, I just learned how to tie my gi right last week. You
Yeah.
know? You know, and they're like, "No, they got age groups and they got belts and they got weight classes."
Mm-hmm.
And so I took the rules and I took them to my dad. And off air, he said you did a little bit of research about my pop.
Yeah. So for the listeners, he's a black and red belt, 8th degree, right? And you say
He's a red belt.
a
So
red
once
belt.
you
Yeah.
So
Straight.
people that know jiu-jitsu, they're stripes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you're a brown belt, right?
Right.
And are you striped yet?
Yeah. 3 stripes.
3 stripes. So you're better than any. You know, basically, there's one more stripe, and then you're a black belt.
Correct.
Right. So first of all, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thanks.
But you're better than a no stripe brown belt.
In theory.
Well, you're better than you were when you were a no stripe.
Yes.
Brown belt. Let's say
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So at black belt, it doesn't stop. You get stripes. Continue to get stripes. And then when you get 8 stripes, it turns into a red and white belt. So he's an 8. He's actually 10 in a couple of them, but he's at least 8 in karate, judo, Shotokan, and Japanese jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And Japanese jiu-jitsu is really a more brutal form of Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Because it migrated from Japan to Brazil. What people don't realize is that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was originally going to be called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, but they called it Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because it was more marketable.
100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, they took it from the Japanese
Right.
and tweaked it. Yeah.
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 Okay. Yeah. So you grew up around martial arts your entire life.
I did. Like the whole statement, "My dad can beat up yours." Dad is a true statement for, me, you know, for most of the time. So, but I also grew up around that culture and around that mindset. Like martial arts are for self-defense. Like I know when jiu-jitsu first came here, there were a lot of guys just walking around beating up guys in bars.
Yeah.
I mean, like I know one time I went out of town and I left a guy on my pass list at a bar, and he and his buddy beat up 3 guys because they were talking to the guy was on a date with a girl that he liked.
Oh shit.
And I'm like, I said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I said, I'm done. Like, that's not why you train, and you don't get to put my name on it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that tough guy stuff.
if you're a tough guy, like, if I think I'm better at jiu-jitsu, let's you and me, we'll go in the gym, we'll have rules, and we'll
Right.
see who's better.
You know, I've always wondered how people get into bar fights. Like, I understand it can happen. However, I'm just a big believer of energy, and like the energy that you put out is kind of what you get returned to you. And I've never been at a bar to where I've had a guy just approach me who wanted to fight me. I've just never had it happen.
I got out of one Saturday night.
You got out of one? Like someone was trying to pick one with you?
We were in a VIP booth, and these 2 guys wouldn't leave.
Okay.
And I just like, "Hey, man, you know, would you guys mind leaving?" And the guy's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, because it's our space."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Bro, we work here." I said, "Well, if you work here, then you shouldn't be in our booth." He's like, "Well, we're off." I go, "Well, then you can go hang out with wherever your friends are."
Yeah.
He's like, "We're not bothering you." I go, and I finally just called the guy who's the manager, who's a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
And those guys just ran like little turds. But I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, and I was with a bunch of guys that wrestle. And so they were like, "Coach, mess him up." I'm like, you know, my explanation's always been this, like, if I get in a fight, I have to be able to justify it to my mom and dad.
That's a good way to rationalize it.
Well, especially with my dad, with his background. Like,
He have strict rules on
fighting's for self-defense,
okay.
right? I mean, really in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you take what you have to verbally to
Yeah.
avoid it.
Ideally, you don't fight, right?
Me?
No, yeah. Just ideally, we don't get in the fight. But
Oh,
if it
oh yeah.
comes,
Ideally, we don't fight. Yeah.
right. But if it comes, you need to be ready.
Well, like so, Mike Rogers is one of your guys, right?
Yeah.
Like I love Mike. He coached with and one of the good people in jiu-jitsu and MMA. And I'm divorced. When I got married 100 years ago on the bachelor party, we were downtown and some guys tried to start a fight with us. And 3 of these guys did like synchronized swimming. They all rear naked. All of my guys rear naked at these dudes, like all at the same time. It was crazy. And when we left, like the cops know my name because my mom teaches them.
Okay.
Okay. And they're like, get out of here before we got to put your name in a report. So the next day I call my dad, tell him what happened. He's like, did you touch anybody? I'm like, no. He's like, was there any excessive force? I'm like, no, they just choked him out, put him down. They didn't even drop him on the pavement. They put him down.
Which is a nice thing to do.
Right. I said, nobody hit him afterwards.
Yeah.
We just left. And he goes, okay. And I'm like, hey, if you don't mind, would you tell? And then you just put my mom on the phone. So that was the worst. You get to a certain age where you don't want to disappoint your parents. Like, you'd rather they be mad at you than disappointed. Yeah. So I didn't. You avoid fights when you can, but at the same time, like if you're with somebody, like if you're on a date, that's different, right?
I mean, so there's situations where you have to stand your ground for sure. And then I think that example you gave me, I would hope those guys wouldn't try to fight you over that. But if it did, I mean, it's not like you're causing the situation in that instance. I don't think.
I 100% didn't cause it.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Like 100%, because they're like, well, you're not. We had 2 booths, right? We were all hanging out. He goes, they're not even here. I go, if you're not using your living room, that doesn't mean I can just walk in and hang out.
Exactly.
It's my space, right?
I've been out with somebody before, and for whatever reason, he might have said something or bumped into the guy or something. But then the dude wanted to fucking fight him, and I couldn't understand why it was happening to that guy. I've never had that.
That happens a lot, right? Like I remember one fight I got because a guy wouldn't stop grabbing my ex-wife's rear end.
Oh shit!
And
these fucking guys.
Well, I was just like, we were in suits, and so like I don't think he thought. And I don't look scary.
Do you have cauliflower ear?
A little bit.
Okay, I didn't really get it. I don't know if it's just because I was pretty good about wearing headgear, but I've been doing jiu-jitsu for almost 12 years now, and I still don't have it.
But jiu-jitsu's not an impact sport.
But I fought for a long time too, and
then you got lucky.
Still did a lot of wrestling.
Yeah,
I fought for a decade. So
I mean, I've had it drained 3 times, so I don't. That's like I got it 4 times and drained.
So it
3.
did actually swell up on you, and you had to drain it, and you did. I never had. I have a piece of my ear that's a little hard, but you can't even tell. It's really weird.
I can't get any uglier, so I can't get it. So,
But normally that's the first sign, right? I mean. The ear.
Yeah.
People can see the ear and they know.
Yeah, like Couture's a good buddy of mine. He's got the legendary ears,
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's gnarly ears.
Yeah.
You hang out with a lot of wrestlers.
Me?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, a lot of wrestlers. A lot of jiu-jitsu guys,
Yeah.
A lot of wrestlers, with the podcast and traveling and doing the play-by-play.
Yeah.
A lot of wrestling people.
So people should just be able to tell what they do.
But, the funny thing is, like the Nationals were here in March, right?
Is this one of the best cities for Nationals? I hear that people really love coming to St. Louis for Nationals because it's easy. Like you can get off the plane and you can hop right on the Amtrak and go downtown. Do people like that?
I think that's it, but I think it's also like, okay, we're all going to meet at XYZ spot in between rounds, right?
Okay.
Like, you've been there 6 times, right?
Yeah.
Like when we coached junior college, when it was at the same place, we knew where to get groceries. You knew where to get our workout in. Like people like routine,
and
right?
People like that about the city.
Well, like if next year the Nationals are in Detroit, I don't know where we're going in between rounds. I've never been there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So at least not at that new arena.
Okay.
Like I've been to Detroit, but not at that arena, not for 4 days.
Oh, that makes sense. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But I'm saying so. St. Louis is good, but we were down there, and we were down in Soulard. In between rounds, like at the end of the session, and I was with Michael Pixley. I don't know if you know Michael, but he trains out at Heath.
Okay.
He's ranked number 2 in the world in blue belt right now. He's very, very good. He's a great wrestler.
I was trying to picture his face. I know his name.
Yeah, real good kid.
Yeah.
A good kid. Great guy. And I kind of nudged him towards jiu-jitsu. Like, he trained with me a couple times, and then I sent him over to Heath because he was just getting too good.
It's a good place to go.
Yeah, and I'm friends with Alejandro and those guys, and I knew he would take good care of
I was just there yesterday. I'm going actually up today, too.
Yeah, well, so you'll meet Michael.
Yeah.
He basically lives over there now. But I was with him, one of his buddies, and 3 of my wrestling coaching buddies. And we're standing, and, you know, somebody bumps into somebody, and my buddy's drink spills on the other guy. And my buddy's like, hey, man, sorry, let me get you another drink, even though it wasn't his fault, right?
Yeah.
And these guys went to fight. And I just said to the guy, I go, you don't want to fight.
Oh, man.
I just said to him, I go, you don't want to fight. And he's like, wait, you're going to do something about it? I go, I'm not going to have to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I said, I'm just telling you don't want to fight.
Yeah. The average person is just way too overconfident, bro.
Well, I think the average person can't fight. I actually think they're not confident. I think they don't have an outlet for it, right? Like, you go to jiu-jitsu for an hour or two, or spar for an hour or two, or wrestle for an hour. You ain't trying to fight anymore. Like, you're just trying to, like, sit in an ice bath and eat a steak and watch the All-Star game tonight. You know, so when you get it out of your system, these other guys that are crazy like that, they don't fight. Yeah. That's why the guys that are martial artists that are starting fights, they're the worst kind of bad.
Well, that's just because I think whenever you do train these, whether it's wrestling or it's jiu-jitsu or it's Muay Thai or boxing or any of these combat sports, you quickly learn and you get feedback that there's always a badder dude out there, and you're not always the baddest. And you learn what does and doesn't work, and you figure out that there are real consequences to your to things not working. And I just think some of these guys, they haven't gotten that feedback yet, and they just truly believe their own delusion. That, man, I'm gonna be able to hit you, I'm gonna knock you out, and meanwhile their arms are like this big because they've never even lifted a weight or anything like that.
Well, and you have to respect the fact that anybody can get lucky, right? Like when David Evans fought the other night, you know, we all felt David was a lot better than that guy. Yeah. And it turned out he was a lot better than that guy. Right. But you can't walk in with your hands down and chin up, right? Like
100%.
So you still have to train like, you know, it's going to be hard. I tell all those guys, I go, mentally prepare that you might get lucky shotted and be goofy for 30 seconds, and you're still going to come back and win the fight. Yeah. Then if that doesn't happen, you're good. Like if somebody goes, oh, you're going to knock him out in 15 seconds, and now you're 2 minutes in the fight, and you haven't knocked him out, instead of, like, let's say you're winning the round, right? Yeah. Instead of feeling good about that, you feel bad about that, and when you feel bad about that, it's like your energy bar goes down, right? Right. So I think, and we're just jumping around, but I think that's another reason why guys like me in their corner.
For the mindset piece?
Well, I've coached state champions. I've coached national champions. I've coached world champions. Yeah. I won state. I won nationals. I won worlds. Yeah. And so there's a credibility there, right?
100%.
Right? I mean, like, you're better at jiu-jitsu than me, for sure, okay? But if you went to a tournament, okay, and you're fighting a wrestler, and I'm like, he's trying to do this, you got to do this, you'd probably listen. Right. Even though I'm better than you, or you're better than me, at jiu-jitsu.
Well, the proof is in the pudding, dude. Like, you're a phenomenal coach. I think you sell yourself, you're like a little too modest with what you've done and how good you are, just because you are exposed to so many high level, like you said, like that next level. But
well, it's better for somebody else to talk about how good you are than you talk about how
that's true.
Good yourself is, right?
Kind of keep that humble aspect, right?
Well, like Mike Rogers is that way, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, like, and you guys all love Mike.
Nobody wants to be that arrogant asshole who's just
one of the things most endearing about Mike is his humility. Yeah. Right? I mean, I just saw him yesterday. He's helping me run my next charity event. And, you know, if you saw Mike, you would not think he's could fight. Right? Yeah. Like, he doesn't act like that. His tone of voice isn't like that. His mannerisms are not like that. Yeah. His behavior. And, you know, so he conducts himself like a martial artist. So I'd rather be the guy that, you know, isn't pounding his chest. Yeah. And somebody like you comes and goes, that's a good dude.
Yeah, because that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, right. But then the other way around, right? So, yeah, I mean, but those things have helped in credibility in terms of coaching, in terms of podcasting, in terms of doing play-by-play. Like, I had a lot of college coaches hitting me up during the Olympic trials, like, while I'm on the air, like, great job explaining things the right way, you know, telling the audience what we would be telling our guys in the corner. Right. And those are the biggest compliments, you know, like you're belted above me and you work harder at jiu-jitsu than me, so I have no problem saying you're better than me. But if I go coach you, and you win a fight or you win a tournament, and you're like, Coach, it really helped you being in the corner.
Yeah.
That's for you to say. That's not for me to say, right? That's not for me to say.
Yeah.
If maybe you just stroked everybody and all I did was make sure you didn't lose your backpack, right? And sometimes that happens too, right? Or, hey, I actually didn't need you today, but all the stuff we worked on in the room was the difference.
Yeah.
Like you said, the proof is in the pudding, right? Like if guys ask you to be in their corner,
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Well, all I know is throughout the years of just being in the fight game, and you've been there too, I've seen you in a number of corners, and you've obviously have coached at every level from I would imagine you've coached at high school all the way up to the world level, right? So
yeah, and most of the guys won, right?
Yeah, so that's
But
an amazing thing.
I also think that I think, like David Evans and I started a relationship, sort of professionally coaching a couple years ago, and he said, "Coach, I think you'd be good to coach me. I think you'd be good. You could help me." And I said, "Maybe." I knew David, and I like David a lot. I like David as a person a lot. And I said, "But that's the thing. Like, I have to like you.
That makes sense.
I have to believe that if I ask you to do something and it's reasonable, that you'll do it. So, I'm sure you're very skilled. You're in shape. Let's say you were out of shape. I'm like, Adam, you want to win the brown belt world, you gotta go do road work.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm taking my time and investing it and you won't run, okay, well then you don't really want to win. You just want to talk about winning.
Right.
Okay. And so, David and I had that conversation, and I said, and David, you wrestled a different style than me. You're more athletic. You're more explosive. I can coach that. I've coached a ton of guys that way, but you also need to be comfortable with how I coach. And so we just did a couple sessions together, and we got along great. And David, we get along. Like, we watched the fights together Saturday night, me, him, and Jeff Brock, just hung out.
Yeah.
There's no coaching. Nobody's above anybody. We're just
friends hanging out.
Just hang. Exactly. Those guys help me feel younger. It's cool they let me hang out with them, right? So, but Mario Millsap, I don't know if you know Mario.
I don't know if I know Mario. No.
But he's a purple belt.
I do know Mario. Does he train at Watson's?
Yeah.
Yes, Mario's a great dude.
Mario's awesome. One of my best friends. And he trained with David a lot in jiu-jitsu and helped him get a lot better. And, they're friends. They're friends because of that, because they wouldn't have met.
Right.
I think you probably have a lot of friends because of wrestling and jiu-jitsu.
100%.
And same with me.
Yeah.
We're coach. I think I told you I walked in when I'm going to Coach Fargo this weekend, and there's 24 people I'm supposed to have lunch with in 9 days.
How do you do it all, man?
Well, but I'm saying they're all from different states. It's just
Yeah.
over the years you've met people, and
Right.
You've done a good thing, and you've treated people the right way, and
Yeah.
things like that.
I love for me, I always say one of the things I love the most about jiu-jitsu is the community aspect, but that really applies across, combat sports in general. We just at the fight at the Shamrock show, there's so many familiar faces. It was just so cool to see everybody. I bet it's the same thing when you go to these wrestling get-togethers.
They are, but wrestling and MMA are super different. So, wrestling, this is why I tell people why wrestlers do so well in MMA besides the skill set. In wrestling, Fargo's the high school nationals, okay?
Okay.
And you wrestled in high school?
Yeah.
Where'd you wrestle?
I wrestled at Jeff City High School.
Okay. So they held a state tournament.
Right.
So you don't get to say, well, I won the Jefferson City Open, or I won the Eureka Quad, or the Afton. It's super simple. How'd you do at state?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's super simple.
Very simple.
And there's no age groups. It's what is 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade combined.
Yeah.
You were in big schools, class 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's 60 guys that start the year.
Yeah.
You took somewhere between 1st and 60th, okay?
Right.
And there's no explanations.
Yeah.
Right? If you go, how'd you do? I go, I won. I don't have to explain anything.
Yeah.
How'd you do? I didn't win. Okay.
Right.
Then you weren't the best guy.
Right.
Doesn't matter if you were winning 14-0 and the guy pinned you.
Yeah.
You lost.
You lost.
Jiu-jitsu or MMA, I could be 10-0 in MMA right now. Doesn't mean I'm any good.
Right.
It just means we found 10 guys that were worse than me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You can't go 4-0 in the state tournament and not be good.
That's true.
Because it's a funnel.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much false confidence or so much false braggadocio in MMA that anybody that's honest that wrestled and did MMA will tell you wrestling training's harder.
Oh, it's so much.
It's so much harder.
It's just a constant grind every day.
Well, because you can't fight live every day. Like we can't go in and you kick me as hard as you can and I punch you as hard as I can.
Right.
Like nobody. But wrestling,
there's easy days in fighting.
There's hard cardio days.
Yeah.
But the grinds, if you're good on top, I might not get out for 45 minutes in wrestling, and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
So wrestling, there's this big pond, and you jump in it, and then it's real clear how good you are.
Yeah.
In MMA, they give you this little pond, okay?
Yeah.
You just got to be the best out of these two guys, and then a new guy, and then a new guy, and then a new guy, and then a new guy.
Yeah.
Because record matters so much in MMA. Like,
right.
You could be 6-5, and I know these guys are different weight classes, but you could have lost to GSP, Habib,
right,
Michael Bisping, Anderson Silva,
right,
and John Jones, and I could be 11-0, and I could have fought the Seven Dwarfs and the Three Stooges, and people will think I'm better.
Right.
And that's not true.
Right.
It's not true.
Right. That is, yeah, what you said is very true just now.
So, like in wrestling, when we coached junior college, we would wrestle all 4-year schools the whole year. We didn't wrestle any junior colleges. We avoided junior colleges as much as we could because, one, it helped our guys get recruited.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I'm like, Adam, you just lost that guy. It doesn't matter. You're never going to wrestle that guy again to win nationals, but let's go watch the film and get better.
Right.
And so we would have guys win nationals that were like 27-9, and they'd beat somebody by 12 points that was 31-1.
Oh,
but they wrestled a bunch of bums.
Right, because they're just wrestling better competition. Well,
yeah.
Your guys are.
Yeah. So that's this MMA thing. Like, because like people go, how good is, okay, like who are the really good guys coming out of St. Louis right now? David Evans?
Yeah, from a fighting perspective.
Evan Elder?
I wish I knew more, but.
But I mean, Evan Elder?
Yeah.
Right? Like Sean Woodson's in the UFC right now?
Sean Woodson's in the UFC
okay.
right now.
But like David and Evan are guys I've worked with, right?
Yeah.
So people say, how good are they? And I'm like, why, like, is David ready to fight, Volkanovski? No.
Probably not.
No. But could David fight in the UFC right now?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
Right. But does it make more sense for him to go to PFL?
Yeah.
But again, like if he has to fight Bubba Jenkins, that's a bad matchup for him.
He could even do well in Bellator. I mean, we got Julius in Bellator.
Sure. Oh yeah. But I'm saying like it's so different because like in wrestling, when you wrestle in a tournament, the only things that matter to win in wrestling are tournaments, right?
Yeah.
State, nationals, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're my coach, you're just helping. David, let's just get better. In a fight, it's David. Here's how you're going to beat Evan Elder.
You have to win
because it's just one fight at a time, and the camp is all about. Okay, Evan Elder's he's a orthodox, and he likes to strike. He doesn't love jiu-jitsu. He likes to be on top. So we got to stop the takedown. Like when Evan fought CJ. Okay.
Yeah.
I found out I was cornering him 35 minutes before the fight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was a compliment. And I texted Mike because me and Mike are friends, and I'm friends with CJ.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, hey, he doesn't have his third corner. He doesn't even know if Dustin's going to get off the microphone in time. So he asked me to walk with him. Okay. So I take no credit for Evan. I used to coach him a long time ago and helped him get to Florida.
Okay.
But Evan's like my little brother. He's just a good kid. He's going to be good.
Yeah.
But he didn't win or lose because I was in the corner. But Eric Steenberg was his main corner guy, and I said, I'm not going to say anything unless you ask me to.
Okay.
I said, I will say something to you, so you're the voice he's used to hearing.
Right.
I said, and just ignore me unless you think I'm saying something smart.
Dude, you're very methodical with your approach.
But what he said was, if it hits the ground, okay, and CJ's got him at submissions, that's why Evan wants you here, because he knows you know how to defend submissions as a wrestler. So he goes, so don't yell it to me, yell it to him.
Okay.
So I think I yelled for 20 seconds of the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, Evan looked great that fight.
Yeah.
He looked great.
CJ did too.
Yeah, man, CJ didn't have nearly as good as head movement. It's just Evan was moving really well. He went high, low, high, just mixed it up to the head, to the body. I got to commentate for that fight.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so, yeah, Evan looked great that fight.
Yeah, and when you're on the 50-yard line, so to speak, and you're friends with both of them,
Yeah.
you're able to see it a lot more rationally, a lot more objectively, right?
Yeah, because CJ, for the listeners, CJ's a training partner of mine. He trains at St. Charles MMA,
Yeah.
and I roll with him on a regular. He's a vet, dude. He's been around for a long
Yeah.
time. Just
And that was a style fight, right? Like if they fight 12 minutes on the ground, CJ probably wins that fight.
on the ground.
Yeah, right. I
Right.
mean, if he can get it down there.
Right.
But see, that's again where sort of the wrestling dictated it, right? Like CJ's wrestling wasn't good enough to get it to the ground.
Right. That's why wrestling is probably the best base for fighting. You just see that time and time again. Because to your point, you can dictate where the fight goes.
Well, agreed. The other thing is this, and this will probably tick some people off, but I'll stand by it. Wrestling's the hardest of the three things to get really good at.
Yes.
So, and if you're really good at wrestling, you'll probably be okay at jiu-jitsu right away.
Yeah.
And if you're really good at jiu-jitsu, you're still going to get your ass kicked in wrestling.
Yeah.
Because your habits are to go to your back in certain positions, and then
Right.
the match is over.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I always say it's easier to teach a wrestler how to strike than a striker how to wrestle. So it goes back to the same point. The wrestling is the best base.
yeah, so Michael Johnson, Jason High, Zach Cummings, Deron Wynn, Jamel Jones, those are five of the guys that wrestled for us
Okay.
that are fighting now in MMA,
Yep.
UFC.
I wrestled Ron in high school.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Yeah. He was the 1 seed and I was the 2. We met in the semis.
Should have met in the finals if you're 1 and 2.
They don't seed like that.
Oh, you weren't seeded. You were
We were
ranked.
I'm sorry.
Ranked.
I was number
Okay.
1. Yeah,
Ranked.
number 2
Gotcha.
ranked. Yeah,
Gotcha.
sorry.
At state?
Yeah.
Oh, which year?
I graduated in 06. So,
Okay.
yeah, this is
Yeah.
my senior, his junior year.
Yeah. So, but all those guys, like one of the things Zach was telling me, which is really smart, he goes, what's great about wrestling is when a guy shoots, you don't drop your hands. He goes, when they fake a shot, a lot of times what they want you to do is drop your hands to defend,
Yeah.
and they come with that overhand,
big
left or
bomb.
right, depending on which handed they are.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, wrestlers, he goes, we know how to defend the shot with our hips.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, so we don't get clipped.
Yeah.
And so, like in wrestling, there's lines of defense: head, hands, arms, hips, tricks. And so if you're good at lines 4 and 5, you don't have to use 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing too. Like people go, he was a great wrestler. Like I've coached a lot of guys and they stopped wrestling, or they would wrestle in an MMA gym. I'm like, you got to go wrestle.
Yeah.
Like you could go to a high school or a college and wrestle.
There's a difference.
Well, like if I walked into your gym right now, I would be one of the better wrestlers for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 100 years old, but I'd still be one of the best wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if I send you to a college room, you're going to get killed. You can get killed when you wrestle. Like that's because they're a bunch of 22-year-old savages, and that's all they do.
Yeah, they're just fucking just full of testosterone and just want.
But they also know how to wrestle.
Right, and they want to hurt people.
Yeah, they would probably like training with a guy like you because afterwards you could show them 9 different ways to choke a guy out, and there are guys like that. So they wouldn't try to hurt you, but you wouldn't lose. You would lose by a lot.
Whenever I say that, I've just noticed, like I'm 33 now, and I just noticed a difference in my mind, like a difference in my mindset from whenever I was in my early 20s. There's just this drive to dominate that's just a little bit different than I have today, and there's just something about that when you're younger.
I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're probably more self-assured now. So I think when you get older, you're more self-assured. So you don't have to win this to feel good about yourself as a man.
Yes.
Or to know how good you are at jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Or to know if you could defend your wife or girlfriend or your mom or sister.
Yeah, I'm not looking for validation from this external
but when
source.
you're younger,
Right.
and especially if you haven't won a lot, you're like, I'm going to beat this guy up in the bar so I can feel good about myself when I go home.
Yeah.
I was lucky because I won nationals before I could drive, so I never had that.
Yeah, but that's what drove you to win nationals, though. Like that's the driver, even amongst the greats. Like there's that external validation that feels so good to know that you're the fucking man, and you want to keep winning, and that's what makes people great.
I think a lot of the reasons why I wrestled though was because I dealt with a lot of racist stuff when I was young.
That was your driver.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's very interesting, right? At a certain age, you just want to be like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
You just don't want to stick out. You don't want to get made.
in.
You just want to fit in, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to a certain age and you don't want to be like everybody else. Like now everybody on TikTok and social, I'm different than you. You're different than,
Yeah.
and, kids can be really mean, right?
Yeah, kids are assholes, dude.
I think kids can be mean if they're parented the wrong way, right? Like if you're
Hmm.
parented the right way,
Hopefully you're a little more compassionate.
well, you just know like that's not acceptable behavior, right?
Right.
I can't hate you because you have red hair.
Yeah, like
I
that's not
can't hate
okay.
you because you're African American, right?
Right.
I can hate you because you said something about my mom.
Yeah.
That's a reason to dislike you. Okay? I shouldn't hate you because of your political beliefs. Like, but you find reasons to get along or not get along, right?
Yeah.
So, my dad was really good about not pushing us to wrestle. And I really didn't wrestle till the 7th grade. And then but I was around it all the time.
Yes.
And
Just
so, like, we're
exposure.
always rolling around with the college guys and kind of,
Your dad taught at Merrimack for 30, or not taught, coached the wrestling
Taught and
team?
coached, though.
Taught 35 years?
longer.
Longer?
Like 30, yeah, like 36, 37, 38, I think.
Man.
Yeah.
So you just grew up on the mats.
Yeah, we'd just go to the gym, and that was our normal. But he didn't make us wrestle. I wrestled in one tournament in the 4th grade and kind of got my teeth kicked in. And he was like, David, you just didn't train. Like, you didn't deserve to win. He's like, I love you, but that was embarrassing. He had this perfect line between being cold and being a good dad. He's like, that was embarrassing.
Yeah.
And he's like, that was embarrassing for you, and frankly, it was embarrassing for me. He goes, so don't do this if you're not going to train. So I didn't train for 3 years, and he never treated me any different. When I look back on that, I deal with helicopter dads all the time.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm sure if their kids didn't wrestle, they wouldn't talk to them the same way, and he didn't treat me any different. And then in the 7th grade, I said, I want to wrestle. He goes, I don't care if you want to wrestle. Do you want to train?
That's a big distinction.
Yeah. And, I said, yeah. And he goes, how do I know? I go, just you tell me what to do and I'll do it. And if I don't do it, then you don't have to coach me.
And that's probably where you get it from, because like you said, if a guy comes to you, you'll tell them to, like, you need to get in shape. Are you serious about this?
Yeah, the older you get, if you had good parents, the more you become like your father, whether you want to or not, right?
Right.
I always tell guys when I coach them, I go, when you're 15, your father's like the stupidest human being in the world.
Yeah.
And when you're 25, he's brilliant.
I'm waiting for that 25-year mark, because I had a college professor tell me that, and my son, he's about to turn 13. And I swear, dude, we're hitting this point to where he just wants to challenge everything. I'm just like, dude, come on now.
But you get it, though. Like, you were a kid.
Yeah, I understand.
And the dad didn't change. You changed. Your perspective of him changed.
Right.
So you now get, like, okay, yeah, like, when he said that, this is why he said it.
Yeah.
And my dad was not always the most communicative. I mean, he's full Japanese, so sometimes you just did it because he told you to. But, he always had your best interest at heart. And, like I said, he just understands body movement so well.
Yeah.
And so that's helped me be a good coach, I think, because, we coach. So Chris Craig wrestled for us at Merrimack, and he trained jiu-jitsu with us. And we were at a gym where he was a white belt. He was like the 3rd, 4th best guy in the gym. And he never won a tournament, but it was always because he was fighting up a weight, up a belt or two, or down an age group. Okay, because he was little and he was like 30-something years old, right?
Yeah.
So I just started taking him around to different gyms because he lost to this one guy at the Chicago Open, like 6-4, 8-6, or 4-2. I can't remember, but it was a 2-point fight, and there was a bunch of rolling around.
Yeah.
And the guy got the last sweep, like that kind of thing. And so we took him to like all these different gyms. And what I said, look, like you run the gym. I go, I'll teach wrestling for free here if you let my guy roll for a week.
Oh, that's cool. You're just bartering services.
Yeah. But I said, I want you guys, when you beat him, to tell him how you're beating him.
Yeah.
And he rolled with purples and basically purples and browns.
That's a good way to get good fast.
Well, he kept getting stuck, and finally we just went. I got a really cool gym in my house, and my dad came over one day. He goes, he's got his toes tucked. Because he kept getting swept.
Mm.
And I go, what? He goes, he's got his toes tucked. He goes, put his insteps flat to the mat. Changed everything.
Just that
Changed
small little
everything.
detail.
7 weeks later, after he lost to that guy, he beat that same guy 19-0 to win the finals of the Worlds.
Wow. That's the importance of a coach, of a trained eye.
It was unbelievable. He won, and 8 minutes later, Jason High choked a guy unconscious to win his belt and got his brown belt on the mat.
Oh, wow.
And they both had wrestled for me on the same team at Merrimack.
That's cool.
And then there was a UFC that night, and we were in Long Beach. Like, I don't know how we made it home. It was a great night.
Dude.
You know.
Dude. You hang out with a lot of winners. You probably have some pretty epic nights.
Yeah, you know, yeah, you just like I have this phrase like, look, you know, like if somebody's really good, I'm like, look, you know, to the mom or dad, like, you made the meal, we're just the salt and the pepper. You know, like, the kid's the meal, you know, the athlete's the meal. Like, David Evans would be fine if I dropped dead tomorrow. Okay? He'll be fine. David's going to be fine. Hopefully he'll be better with me in his life.
Yeah.
But I'm not that important. And when you value yourself properly
Mm-hmm.
is when guys listen to you. Like, if I'm out there posting, like, just hugging David's, you know what, like, riding his tails, right? He knows I'm doing it for the wrong reasons.
Right.
If I'm like, David, I don't even know how to share your post on Instagram. Can you teach me how? You know, like, that's like, okay. I'm like, is it cool if I share this? He's like, yeah, coach, I want you to. I'm like, okay, show me how.
Yeah.
And you know, that's different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you don't, there's a fine line between having a healthy, like, understanding and, like, respect for yourself and then, like, being this out of control, like, egomaniac who needs all this validation, right? And nobody wants that guy.
I know how smart I am.
Yeah.
I know how good of a coach I am. I do.
Yeah.
I just don't think if I have to tell you about it,
Right.
I probably just need to go do more.
Yeah.
Right? I need to do so much.
I like that philosophy.
Yeah, I just need to go do more. And then you're like, damn, that guy's good, right?
Yeah.
You know, like Randy Couture, when we know when he has to.
Nobody has to tell him.
Yeah. Like, he met some of my friends a couple months ago, and he goes, "Hi, I'm Randy." That's all he said, you know, like.
Yeah.
And
those are the best people.
And 3 of the wives had no idea who he was.
Yeah.
One of them knew him from The Expendables. You know?
Yeah. But man, that's the thing though. The more I'm kind of meeting people through podcasting and just it puts things in perspective of, you know, there can be somebody who's massive in this space of whatever it is. Like, for example, I just took my family on this road trip and I came across this artist on the radio who I've never heard before. But then I looked her up, and she has probably 3 or 4 million followers. So
she's good.
She has a lot of followers.
She's probably talented.
Exactly. But that's 3 or 4 million in the grand scheme of the world. There's still a whole bunch of people who don't even know you, even in America.
Even if she had 100 million, if she just acts like I'm just me, right?
Right.
You know.
Yeah. So I mean, that's my point. I mean, you can even be a big person in wrestling or like Randy Couture and all these different spaces. You still just act like a human because, 1, there's probably somebody who doesn't know you, and 2, I mean, we're all just people.
Well, at the end of the day, we all eventually are accountable to a higher being, right?
Yeah.
And so that entity doesn't care how many Twitter followers you have.
100%.
So, you know, whatever everybody believes, I think if you believe in some version of that, that should keep you humble, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's super easy for a guy like me to be humble when I'm having talks with Randy Couture, right? Because, like, there's levels to the game.
Dude, it puts it in perspective.
So, you know, like, you know, the only thing I'm better at Randy is I have a bigger copper mug collection than he does. I do have that.
A copper mug collection.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Dude, how did wrestling save your life?
Well, I got picked on a lot as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jap, Chink, Eskimo kid, and that's why I wrestled in the beginning in the 4th grade because I just wanted to learn how to fight.
Mm.
And I went to private school all the way to the 8th grade, and I went to Westminster.
Okay.
In 7th and 8th grade, I went to Covenant Christian School, but Westminster at the time didn't have a wrestling team, and so I had to beg my parents to go to Kirkwood, which is where we live. And my mom made a deal with me, like she picked my classes. I had to get a 4.0, or I couldn't, you know.
Oh man.
Well, like both my parents are teachers. Like it was just, you know.
Yeah.
It was not. Certain things are super hard for me. Like I almost cut my thumb off in shop class, but like I could do calculus. You know, like
yeah.
So we all have talent.
When you have that help right there.
Yeah.
Honestly, my son has a 4.0 right now, and I mean I've helped him through all. He's about to be in 8th grade, but the work he's doing, like for me, both my fiance and I, we have our master's degree, so it's not really super hard
He
work.
should be getting a 4.0.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So when you have that help, it makes sense.
Yeah. So just like I should have been good at wrestling, right? Like there's certain things you just should have been good at. And so, but it was in the 7th and 8th grade, it was all about you're not white and you don't wear Izod or polo every day. And then I went to Kirkwood, and it was so much more of a meritocracy, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I went from being odd to you're really good at this sport. Like I didn't do great my freshman year. I qualified for state. I won districts. I went, I think 2-2 at state.
Okay.
But I think I made like the final 8. But that's certainly not anything to go walking around bragging about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, none of it is, but that certainly isn't. But I was top 8, which in Westminster they would have laughed and said, "Well, you must be gay because you like to roll around with other guys."
Yeah.
So it got framed differently, right?
Yeah.
And then after my freshman year, I went to the 16 and under nationals and took 2nd in Greco and 3rd in freestyle, and then was like ranked one of the top 5-6 freshmen in America at my weight class. And then you jumps levels,
Right.
Like you just jump levels. I mean,
You jumped them fast.
I should have cut weight my freshman year. I beat the kid that ended up being the state runner-up at 112, and I didn't cut. So I probably could have won state.
Yeah.
I just was a sissy. I didn't want to cut weight. I mean, I thought I was good enough, which I clearly should have realized because I lost matches during the year.
Yeah.
That you ever lose to somebody, you're like, it's going to take a lot for me to beat that guy. Has that ever happened to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's other guys like it's a coin flip, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
you're like, I could beat that guy the next time. I don't even have to really get any better. I just need to fight smarter.
Right. Yeah.
And there's other guys you're like, something's got to change. Like something big has to change, or that guy's going to beat me every time.
Oh yeah.
I just wasn't realistic about it with myself.
Okay.
I just I rationalized why it was okay to eat, and but I always tell people that my freshman year I didn't place, and a guy on my team, Greg Warren, who's a stand-up comedian now.
Yeah, I actually started looking him up today. He's pretty funny.
He's awesome. He won state that same year. We were on the same team.
That's cool.
And Greg was really good, but he was just a guy. Like, like he had trouble talking to girls. Like he wasn't like he was just a guy. He was better at wrestling than me, but he was a guy.
Yeah.
And when somebody does something, like when I won Jiu-Jitsu Worlds, it helped a bunch of other guys at the gyms I was at win it because they're like, he's not that good. And I mean, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
When I'm really good, well, let me finish that and we'll go back to this. So we're driving home that night from state, and my dad's driving, and I'm in the seat behind him when we're in the rear view, and I just go, tomorrow? He goes, and I didn't take a day off for 52 weeks. So I earned it.
Yeah.
Like it was paid in full.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really any good the year I won it. Like my senior year, I would have teched my sophomore year.
Yeah, well, that's the progression.
Right, but I mean, but the medals look the same.
Right, that's true. That's true, but you're better.
The medals look the same. What I got good at my sophomore year was knowing where I wasn't good. So, like, if you and me fight in jiu-jitsu, and how long is a brown belt fight now? 8 minutes, 9 minutes?
So I'm master 1, so I think my matches are like 6 or 7 minutes.
6. So let's say there's 7. If I can keep that fight on our feet for 6 minutes and 30 seconds, I can win.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can get a takedown and just hang on.
Yeah.
If you get it to the ground in the first 30 seconds, you're going to win.
Yeah.
You're going to win.
Yeah, time's on my side.
You're going to win. Like, you're being humble. You're going to win that fight. You're going to sweep or submit me or get 3 advantages. You're going to win that fight. So it's, can I keep the fight where I'm good?
Right. So just being smarter.
Just understanding tactics and understanding a lot of the things I talk to guys about on podcasts is how much do you practice where you're already good and how much do you practice where to get better. And a lot of the really, really good guys say people don't practice where they're good enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because what happens is, like when Ben Askren got knocked out by Masvidal in 3 seconds, that was like one of the worst takedown attempts Ben's probably ever done in his life.
Yeah.
But if he had been back at Mizzou wrestling,
yeah,
that shot wouldn't have happened, and that fight wouldn't have happened. But he's coaching, he's still the best guy in his gym.
Yeah.
And clearly Ben was a way better wrestler than I was, okay? So I'm not like, but just objectively,
Right.
his wrestling dropped because he wasn't surrounded with a bunch of wrestlers.
Yeah.
And like Kendall Cross, who's a good friend of mine, he won the Olympics. He has a super unique style. And he's like, I practiced my style 60% of the time. He goes, 40% of the time I practice on getting better. He goes, but I had to win where I was good.
Yeah.
And like you said this earlier, and we kind of got away from it, but one of the other reasons why I think I'm a good coach and how I learned jiu-jitsu was I'm a salesperson, so I'm good at analogies. And so I would tell people, like, how is this like wrestling? Or when I'm coaching a jiu-jitsu guy in wrestling, I'd be like, this is just like a butterfly guard except this.
Right.
I know enough about jiu-jitsu to be able to draw the analogy.
You're able to, yeah,
to connect.
Yep.
Because if a butterfly guard is essentially 6 movements, some version of that,
Yeah.
and I'm like, it's like this except this one piece, I don't have to teach you the other 5.
Right. Yeah. I just need to use the words that are going to make sense to you.
Yeah. So that's where my dad helped me a lot in jiu-jitsu too. Like I'd get stuck in positions. He's like, it's just like this.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Like, okay, yeah. Like, all right. But then I get stuck here. He goes, yeah, then it's like this. And, you walk through it. And the first year I went to Worlds, it was gis, and I don't have a very long wingspan. And I would get stuck on my feet where, like, you're a perfect example. You'd get a hold of my lapel.
And
now I can't shoot.
Yeah.
And then you'd pull, okay?
Right.
So now it's 0-0, and now if I don't score, you're going to win.
Probably, yeah.
Like
yeah.
90% of the time.
Yeah.
100% of the time
If the guy's pulling on you, he wants to be there.
Well, but also, like, they just give it to the guy on the bottom.
You think?
Well, 100 years ago when I wrestled or fought, that's what happened.
Okay.
Okay, it might have changed.
Yeah.
Okay, and I see more of it now. Like I watch a lot of it with Mario, and it has changed. But back then,
yeah,
the bottom guy won.
It was favored probably at that
for
point.
sure.
Yeah.
And then if they were from one of the Gracie gyms.
Yeah. If you're Brazilian, it's still
yeah.
It's
So
still
that
so yeah. Was this White Belt Worlds?
Yeah, White Belt Worlds. And so I said to my dad, like, I get stuck here, and my dad just walks around. Inside reap, right side. So I had done that a lot in wrestling, and I do it. And I go, what about this? He goes, then this. And I do it 6 times. I go, okay. And we leave.
That was it.
We're in the finals of Worlds. Crazy fight. We end up, I had an advantage. He had an advantage. But he put me in a triangle 6 seconds in the fight and almost choked me unconscious. So he's going to win. Like, he should win. I can't even argue. Like, he should win. And we come out of the scramble. We land right here.
Okay.
Inside reap, right side, win the fight.
Nice.
And, it's so crazy. Like, I call my mom about every important decision in my life. Like, when I was going to get married, when I got my first $1 million client, I call my dad. And he didn't understand. It was like a Little League tournament. In college, all the finals are at the same time.
Right.
Jiu-jitsu is like Little League.
It just goes.
They go. Like, your bracket's done in an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe faster.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, it just depends how big it is, right?
Right.
And I call him, and I won. And he's got the whole wrestling teams in his office. And I go, I won. He goes, great. Who you got next? I go, I won. He goes, I know. Who do you fight next? And I used a bad word. I go, I bleeping won. I won the whole thing. And was my dad never screamed. He goes crazy. All the guys on the team go crazy because they had trained with me for like the 2 weeks before, just wrestle with me. And they're all younger and good. But yeah, so like we come back. I fly back the next day. I fly back the next day, and I got to run my friend's bachelor party on Saturday. And like my dad goes, "Did your wife film the fight?" Like, "Oh yeah." And he goes, "When are you gonna watch?" I go, "I don't know, probably Sunday after." He goes, "What time you get in?" I'm like 10 o'clock. He's like, "We'll pick you up." Like I'm at 11 o'clock. I'm sitting there watching. Yeah. But it was cool. It was a moment.
Right.
It was a moment. Like I probably wouldn't have won without him.
Those are special.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They really are, man. I've been trying to. So I just read this book, this Matthew McConaughey book, Green Lights.
Is it good?
Dude, it's pretty fucking good. But in there, there's just one thing that just really stuck with me. I just released a podcast on it, talking about being like less impressed and more involved, and essentially, he's just talking about how whether it's a person or just a situation or whatever the thing is in our life, we tend to be so impressed with them that we're not involved. And I'm on the opposite end where I'll be so unimpressed with things that I'll also not be involved with it. So just to take the time and to just appreciate like the people or those moments.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do way more of that. Just to be in it.
I think that comes with wisdom, right? I'm coaching Fargo, and I didn't have to go, but my dad's going, and he just turned 78, and I'm like, how many more years realistically is this going to happen?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to lose some money because I'm away from my business, but my dad and I are road tripping together for 9 days, and like,
that's
how many people, most people pay it forward, right? Like, you help me and I help them.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in a very unique situation most of my life to be able to pay it back. Like, I was my dad's assistant coach, like, I can take him to Fargo with me, like, these kind of things. And so, I had to think about it for, like, a half a day, just like, can I move my schedule around? And then, a couple months ago, and then we did it, and it's going to be awesome.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Because, we've been talking about all this wrestling, and I feel like that's such a huge part of your life. But you're also a financial advisor, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't even talk about that ever, do you?
There's not a lot to talk about, right? Because you can't really talk about anybody.
Oh, it's just all.
It's all confidential.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the main other thing that I do is I run these charity events, these wrestling events.
Okay.
And we've donated a lot of money to veterans with amputations and PTSD. We're running the next one October 17th out at Lindenwood.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to add 3 BJJ fights.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So if people watch this and they're interested in getting on the card, have them reach out to you or to me. Or to Mike Rogers. Mike Rogers is putting the fights together for me.
Okay, yeah, Mike just posted something about that.
Yeah, so we're just trying to match up different gyms, and our hope. Well, first of all, we're trying to sell tickets, because all the money goes to a good cause. But I think, like, wrestling guys appreciate jiu-jitsu, right? Like, they might not like all the guard pullers, but they understand the importance of how jiu-jitsu can neutralize wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I think jiu-jitsu guys, even if they hate people that just wrestle their way through a jiu-jitsu tournament, respect wrestling.
Yes.
Okay, like, even if you're a pure jiu-jitsu guy, you're like, yeah, but those wrestlers are hard to beat.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I mean, like, so I think those people, we think, like, there's a cool chance for people to watch. And we're also hoping to help the gyms sell some gym memberships. Like, the wrestling kids that are there watching.
Yeah, maybe they want to go do jiu-jitsu.
They want to go to jiu-jitsu. Like, a lot of those guys would rather listen to you after the fight, after the event, than me. Because they know how to do a single leg, a double leg, and a high crotch. They don't know how to do an arm bar, a triangle, and an omoplata.
Right.
And you can teach that better than I can.
Yeah.
So, those are situations like one of the reasons and I don't know that I was ever any good at jiu-jitsu, but as good as I got was I would teach like 30 guys wrestling, right, in a jiu-jitsu gym.
Mm-hmm.
So then when we would spar, like, if you had no wrestling background, I'm teaching you how to wrestle, and then you just mess me up in jiu-jitsu, like, this is my Brazilian coach, don't put hands on ground, put hands on body.
Yeah.
Coach, 2 in, 2 out, and then they show you.
Yeah.
So I always tell people I had like 30 coaches.
Yeah, you're slowly
Well,
learning.
because I taught them, and now they're all better than me,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't start jiu-jitsu until I was like 36. So, your brain's, how to learn by then.
Yeah.
Like, you're probably way better at learning now than you were 10 years ago.
Dude, way better.
Right. So if you start, again, like I said, I started with the only bad habits I had was wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
which clearly there's some bad habits from wrestling, or habits from wrestling that are bad for jiu-jitsu, right?
Right.
But there's also a lot of good ones.
Oh, yeah, far more good ones.
Right. So somebody goes, Coach, don't do that, and then they would show you a fight. Like, see, this is why. Like, this is where Chael Sonnen lost to Anderson Silva after beating him up for 23 and a half minutes.
Right.
Those kind of things.
It's a little too aggressive.
Right. But you start to learn this, right?
Right.
That was helpful. My dad was really helpful. Like, I would complain about the gi, and he finally just said, stop complaining. He goes, you chose to do this.
Yeah.
These were the rules.
You knew it going in.
Stop complaining. He goes, do it and shut up, or don't do it.
Yeah.
And then I was talking to Couture about it. David, it's just upside down wrestling. And it's so weird. Like, I don't know how many words that is. It's like 5 or 6 words, but it just changed everything for me. Cause, like, I was always like a crab rider on top, so I was there a lot anyway. Just the difference is the guy was facing away instead of towards me.
Yep.
But where jiu-jitsu makes more sense than wrestling is, if we're in a street fight and you're on top of me, I'm gonna face you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like if this is the ground and you're on top of me, I'm not gonna belly down and get hand control.
Right. It's not gonna work.
Right. So jiu-jitsu is way more realistic for that. It's also a better martial art to teach women if anything bad happened to them, because they're not going to take some guy down.
Right.
They need to learn how to defend off their back.
Off their back. Yeah. 100%.
And out of the guard for obvious reasons, right?
Yes.
So it's a superior martial art in those
Yeah.
in those specific situations.
Yeah.
But once I was like, oh, it's just upside down wrestling, and you're not penalized for being on your back.
Yeah.
You had to sort of reprogram your brain a little bit, right?
Right.
But now.
Yeah. But you found success. I mean, you did well in gi and no gi. So
Yeah, no gi's really easy for wrestlers.
that's just an easy transition.
It's really
right
easy because the submissions are so much harder to get.
Right.
Because that's hand control, and hand fighting in wrestling, is pretty easy.
Yeah. I was
but-
just talking to a guy. His name's Tad, and
Okay.
I can't think of his last name. He's a pedagogue guy.
Okay.
But he's a wrestler. He's like, yeah, man, I can just stand there and just hand fight with you for
Yes.
for 5.5 minutes and then take you down
Yes.
in 30 seconds and win.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's a real
I'm-
thing.
And I'm like, that's no energy for you at all as a wrestler.
It was so much harder to pull guard in no gi too, like from space.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually, and obviously, it's all an evolution, right? Guys are getting better, women are getting better, but
Yeah.
like before, like if you grab my sleeve, now you can just pull yourself into me,
Right.
get underneath me, and now all of a sudden we're in jiu-jitsu.
Right. But I don't have that same grip no gi.
Well, no-gi, there's 6 different ways for me to roll my wrist out or take it off.
Right.
Like I can just take it off. I can't take you off my wrist, off my sleeve.
Right.
So it's just a different thing.
Yeah. It's a whole lot harder.
Yeah. So, I remember when I was fighting the no-gi worlds, I asked permission, and I would wear my jacket when we were going live. I would let the other guy, I would let you be able to grab me, and I couldn't grab you.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was the only one training for the tournament. So the guy, and you know how it is. Like if you're training for the worlds, it's different now because guys from all the gyms have won,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But back then, remind me to tell you a story about my dad about after I won. But like back then, guys hadn't won. So if they knew they weren't good enough to win, hey, I can't win, but I can help Adam win.
Mm.
So if I say, Adam, if you say, David, can I wear my jacket? Like, yeah, man, cool. Like, and just use the jacket, do whatever. Because I'm like, for me, I knew I was going to get the takedown. I was just dodging submissions and trying to get passes.
Right.
Like I had no submissions from the top. Really, no submissions from the bottom. I had a couple from the front. If I got your back, I know how to do a rear naked.
Yeah. 100%.
I had a good front headlock. Straight choke.
Yeah.
Even darts is even hard for me because I have short arms.
Yeah, that could be challenging.
Yeah,
For them.
but I knew position.
Mm-hmm.
But I also knew I didn't have any submissions. It's like wrestling and knowing you don't know how to pin a guy.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I got to go the whole time. So I got in really good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just fucking work with what you got, man.
Yeah. So real quick, when I got done the tournament, come back, run my friend's bachelor party. We had practice on Monday at Merrimack. And then I talked to my dad after practice. He goes, when are you going to jiu-jitsu practice? I go, oh, I don't know, probably for not like a week, because I was beat up.
Yeah.
He goes, you have to go tonight. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, all those guys helped you win.
Mm.
He goes, it doesn't matter if you spar. He goes, it only matters if you go. He goes, but if you don't go, they're going to all go tonight. Even the guys that don't normally go are going to go tonight. Because this is not just your victory. This is their victory.
That's true.
And I didn't, I was 36, but stupid, right? And I go, okay. And I went, I walked in, everybody, and it was cool. And, I was able to say, Adam, I won this position because of what you do. Hey, Mario, I won this position because of what you do.
Yeah.
And, we trained above a biker bar. And we all just went down and, had something to eat afterwards. And it was just cool. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of those guys were just recreational jiu-jitsu guys.
Yeah.
Which is nothing wrong with that, right?
Right.
But that was the closest they were going to get.
Right. Dude, that's so true. I've never really thought of it like that. Training at St. Charles MMA for so long, anytime there was a big fight or somebody just won a big fight, the next day there's always more people in there training.
Yeah.
And I never really thought of it in the aspect of it's also everybody's win because they helped whoever trained.
They were a part of it.
Right. But that's so true. That
And when I did it, there wasn't social or either. I mean, I don't know, maybe there was. It was like 14 years ago. But I mean, it's not like now.
Right.
Like if you go fight in October and win the Worlds, right? Win the Masters.
yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people on Monday that just want to come in and take a picture with you. Like, so, and not for credit. Like, man, so proud of my guy.
Everybody's just happy just
A. Meredith for doing his thing, man. Long time coming. Way to get that strap. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if you don't show, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's true.
And you know what my dad said to me, too? He's like, you should roll. And he goes, and it's actually okay if they beat you tonight. He goes, it's probably good.
Yeah.
I go, Dad, I'm really sore. I'm beat up. Because he let the wrestling guys beat up on me that day, too.
Did he?
Yeah, which was good. That's love.
Your dad sounds like a cool ass dude, man.
He's a genius. He just gets stuff.
Yeah.
So, but we did it, and I rolled with a bunch of guys, and it was fun. I was super sore.
Yeah.
I said, I'm coming back the rest of the week, but I'm not rolling. And everyone was cool about it,
Yeah.
But a lot of pictures, a lot of genuine thanks from me to them.
Yeah.
But like one of the guys said, he goes, I don't know how to say this the right way. I said, go ahead. He goes, you're only good at like 6 things. I go, that might be generous. And he goes, but you won. He goes, why? I said, because I made those guys fight me in my 6 positions. And I said, the other thing is this. I go, I know how to compete.
Yes.
Like there's Monday through Friday guys and there's Saturday guys.
There's a big difference.
In wrestling, we call them T-shirt guys and singlet guys.
Okay. That makes sense.
That's a statement I made up, and I'm like,
yeah, dude. Some people are world beaters in that practice room, but then they don't. It doesn't
like,
translate.
Duran was the opposite. Duran would lose every day in practice, almost on purpose.
Really?
Against guys that weren't as good as him, but he was always trying stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't keep score.
Mm-hmm.
And but I always said, you find me the brightest light and the most money put down, and I'll put money on that guy.
Yeah.
Like he's a singlet guy.
Yeah.
He's a singlet guy 100. And Jamel was that way too. A lot of the guys, Jason High was that way. Zach Cummings was. Yeah, Zach's actually probably gotten the most out of his talent at that level because he's not a super talented guy.
He's been fighting at the
highest level for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, super. And he used to come. He was from Springfield. He used to come like just stay at my house for like 2 days straight and just we'd watch film and stuff like that. And that's my now he's grown. He's got kids and everything
his
else.
Own gym and all that.
Yeah, but like whenever I go through Kansas City, like we always pop over and just do like a session and just play with just trade technique. Like he teaches me jiu-jitsu. I show him the newest
Dude,
wrestling.
Him and James Krause are killing it with Glory right now.
Yeah, we did a seminar for James. Timmy Elliott was a JUCO wrestler, so I coached against him too. Like all those, the world's small. Like I coached against Daniel. I coached against Matt Hughes. I coached against Jameel Kelly. A lot of these guys.
Yeah.
I coached against Kane. Coached against Brock Lesnar.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a small community, man. To the people to the outside, they don't really understand. But when you've been in this space for a long time, all the big names, like you said, you just named a few there, and you cross paths all the time.
Well, and JUCO guys have done a lot in wrestling. Like people, Daniel was a junior college guy before he was an Oklahoma State guy.
Yeah.
People don't remember that, but like Colby Covington was a junior college guy. John Jones was a junior. Those guys were roommates.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see just so many high-level wrestlers go through the JUCO system for like a year or two, and then go on to do
the other thing is
things.
the JUCO system's super unglamorous. Like, you don't get new uniforms every year. You're not riding on chartered buses.
Yeah.
You're not staying at the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
And so I think it's good training for being tough.
Mm.
And I think it's good training for being appreciative.
Yeah.
And like we said earlier, wrestling training's harder than MMA training.
Mm-hmm.
So like you trained harder and you got less.
Yeah.
And you competed more often and you were more sore.
Yes.
And now you can fight 3 times a year and get paid for it. And you got groupies and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And, it's almost too far the other way now. Like there's guys like that's the other thing like about wrestling. Like you go to a wrestling tournament, like a college tournament, 400 guys, they all make weight.
Yeah.
You go to an MMA fight, there's 12 fights, 2 guys miss weight. You're like,
What the fuck?
yeah, like what do you like they should just take literally they should take 10% of your purse for every tenth of a pound you're off. It would change everything.
Yeah, it would.
If they would change that and do it to visible scoring, the sport would be so much better.
There's definitely some room for improvements to be made amongst the sport.
Well, I was coaching David in Florida a couple of months ago, and I thought he won the first 2 rounds, but the guy kind of might have snuck the first round. Like the guy got on top of him for the last 45 seconds and did a little bit of damage.
Yeah.
And I said, David, I know you think you're up 2-0, but I think this could be 1-1. You got to win this round.
Yeah.
And he won the round. And when they announced the decision, it was 30-27, 29-28, 29-28. And I know he won the third round. Like he clearly won the third round. So it was tied going into that round.
Yeah.
That's sometimes, too, what a coach is good for, right? Is just telling you, because you're in it.
Right.
You know, like you're in it. Like you're doing the commentary, right? So, like in the Evan CJ fight, you probably had it 2-0, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but maybe CJ thinks it's 1-1. Or maybe Evan thinks it's 1-1, right? And so, like, Mike Rogers like, CJ, you need to finish.
Right.
And Eric Steenberg's like, stay on your bicycle. You know, like,
yeah, you gotta.
You're good. You're good. Like, don't go to the ground. You know, like.
Yeah, don't do things stupid.
But the coach can tell. You know, like, the coach knows.
Right. And that's why we need coaches.
Well,
I mean, as an athlete,
yeah.
Again, if you're in it, you got to have again that person on the outside who can, with a cool head, tell you what you need to do.
And coaches that don't get excited, right?
Yeah.
Like, unless it's really important. Like, I talked to Jason after he won that fight in Kansas City where he was losing and then knocked the guy out in the 5th round, Jason High.
Yeah.
And, you know, I talked to him about what James said to him, and it wasn't anything brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
It was more the tone.
Okay.
And I'll say it in PG terms that there needed to be urgency.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, you gotta make something happen.
Let's freaking go, right?
Yeah.
And you know, when you have a guy who's normally calm,
right?
And they're like, "Hey, Adam."
Yeah.
Like, just we got to go. You got to go right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Empty the clip.
You see that change.
Empty the clip. Let's go. If you empty the clip, you're going to win this fight.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to, you know.
Yeah.
I remember I was coaching a kid one year. He was getting beat 7-1 in the national final. He was really good. And kid slammed him. And I told my dad, go over and argue. He goes, about what? I go, I don't care. Just go argue. And so he goes over, and I said to the kid, he's laying there. And I go, you okay? He goes, I said, it's fine. He goes, I go, it's cool, man. You can take second. All your friends back home will understand that you took. He had won Fargo.
Okay.
And got outstanding wrestler. So you should walk through the junior colleges if you did that.
He's a stud.
And I go, it'll be okay. You can tell all your friends you took second in little junior college. He goes, what? I said, it's cool, right? Second's cool. He goes, no. I said, get off your bleeping ass and let's go. He came back. Scored a bunch of points. He was losing 10-9, and the guy tried to hit a duck under, and he hip whipped him and pinned him.
Mm.
And he got outstanding wrestler of the tournament because he had just mashed everybody up. And he made a bet with my dad if he won the tournament, we could eat wherever he wanted. So we would go to Taco Bell.
Taco Bell.
And we go back to the hotel, and my dad goes, what'd you say to him? You know.
Yeah.
And I told him that. He goes, that worked? I go, yeah. I said, I just challenged his manhood. There wasn't any technique. He just was wrestling passive. I said, I don't know if the moment got to it. And I said to him afterwards, he goes, I just thought I was going to mess him up. And the guy, as soon as they blew the whistle, the guy just clubbed him. Like, the guy knew he wasn't better.
Mm-hmm. But he's trying to be more physical.
He just beat him up.
Yeah, take the fight to him.
And it worked.
Until it didn't.
It worked but if he hadn't slammed him, I think that guy would have won.
Mm. See, man, you're a mental mastermind, my man.
I just think you coach guys long enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I coached you for a couple months, I would know what makes you tick, right? Because I would talk to you.
Yeah.
I'm like, what were you doing there? What were you thinking? Why did you try to do this? Why wouldn't you try to do this? You're like, oh, I hadn't thought of it. Or, no, I'm no good at that. Or, no, that doesn't work for me. Or, well, I know he's good at that. Like, okay. Like, you know, and you just start
Yeah.
You start sort of building a portfolio of how to help somebody. Like
Mm.
David Evans is, I think, very good in really two and a half of the areas, right? Like he's very good at striking, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's like perfect, but he's very good. He's good at wrestling, and I think he's pretty good at defensive jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
I mean, that's my assessment, and he's good at getting up. Like he just doesn't have a bunch of, he's not you off his back.
Yeah.
Okay? So when we go into a fight, I'm like, where are we trying to win this fight? Like where's the game plan? I don't tell him. I ask him. Now if I disagree, like if he says, "Well, I want to just pull guard and see how it goes," I'm like, I don't think we should do that.
Yeah.
But like the last fight, he's like, the only way I think that guy wins is if he closes his eyes and throws a right. I said, I agree.
Right.
He goes, I'm going to close the gap intelligently, and he goes, I'm going to take him down.
That's a good plan.
Yeah, but it's better that it was his plan.
Right. Because you get that buy-in.
Well, there is no buy. It's his thing.
That's
it's
my
his
point.
thing. Yeah, it's his thing, right?
Yeah.
So if I say that to him, it almost implies he wasn't smart enough to think about that on his own. Like people will take it that way that are bright. Like, why don't you just let me tell you? I would take it that way. Like,
Yeah.
I know what I'm going to do. Why don't you let me tell you?
Right.
And so I learned that. Like I learned,
Yeah.
ask the other guy first, and then.
Well, you have respect for your athletes, and it's like a cooperative thing at that point.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to say it. Like, yeah, I do. I respect those guys. They're the ones putting their face in the cage, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones training, right? If David wins, I'm not as happy as he is. If David loses, I'm not as upset or sad as he is.
Yeah.
My career is where my career is. My wins and losses, like
Yeah.
you can Google me. I'm probably not adding much more to it. I was going to do the Worlds this year, but I can't do it because it's the week. I thought they were going to be in December, so I'm probably going to fight in them next year. But whether I win or not, it's not going to change anything.
Yeah. Like you've done.
Well, whatever I've
what
done,
you've done.
I've done.
Yeah.
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 If you think I'm good,
Yeah.
winning one more or losing one is not going to change it. And if you think I'm a bum
Yeah.
and I win the tournament, they're going to go, yeah, well, you won it for old guys. It doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah. But dude, those are the best coaches because then you don't have this coach who's trying to like self-validate through your accomplishments, and then you also have this coach who has done the thing that you're trying to do or has been at that level
Yeah.
and accomplished those things, so they know what it takes to actually get there, and you can trust what they're saying.
Well, yeah, I agree, and thank you. But I think the other thing too is like I have a network of people I can call. Like if
Yeah.
David's struggling, like I coached Jason High with Mike Winklejohn. So if Mike Winklejohn said, "I liked how you coached. If you ever think there's somebody good enough to send down here, send them."
That says a
like
lot.
David's an American top team, so he has a relationship down there with Dean Thomas. David has trained with Duke Rufus, so he has a relationship there.
Yeah.
So if I have another guy, I'm like, David, can you call Duke for us? Can you call Dean for us? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Relationships are so important.
So the net right, but obviously with Randy, right? Like if somebody wants to train at Extreme Couture, like okay,
Yeah. Is that still in Vegas?
yeah.
Okay.
So I mean Ryan's running the gym now, but I'm friends with Ryan too, not like Randy, but I'm still friends with him.
Mm-hmm.
Friendly enough that he'll take the call.
Yeah.
And and there's two levels, right? You have to be friendly enough, and then you have to have enough credibility.
Right. So you
Right.
can at least facilitate something there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, I could be friends with Randy, but I'm like, here's who your interior decorator should be. He's like, yeah, I've seen your house. Like, that's not a thing.
Right.
But if I'm like, this guy can fight, he's like, okay.
He's gonna
Yeah.
take your word
Like,
for it.
yeah, like I was texting with him. Jamel fought the same night David fought. In PFL.
No, I don't know that.
No, Jamel Jones fought in PFL
Okay.
the same night of the Shamrock fight
Okay.
that David was fighting. And Jamel got in on 1 week's notice.
Oh, really?
He had just won the CFFC title because the guy bailed.
Okay.
So they called him up, put him on a contract. And I was messaging with Jamel. I go, you understand how this works? Because it's that point system. He goes, Coach, I got to take him out in the first round. I got to hope this other guy loses. I go, okay.
Okay.
No,
Yeah. Yeah, he had an understanding.
I said, listen, man, I'm not your coach anymore, but you got to throw the kitchen sink at him. Time is money.
Yeah.
I said, go get that bag. And so he wins on the undercard. I had texted, Randy texted me the day before. He's like, it says here Jamel wrestled for you, like on his bio. I go, yeah. He goes, tell me about him. So I'm, giving all the data. And then when, Randy's really a cool guy. Like when Jamel won on the undercard, I was like, he can make it in, right? He goes, yeah, if this happens. And then like when it happened, like I was in the back with you.
Okay.
And it happened. And I don't know, like I just kind of went like this, like by myself, And I was like, he's 2 fights from $1 million now.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That is awesome.
And even Randy's like, man, he's raw, but he's dangerous. I'm like, I used to have to wrestle with that guy. He goes, oh my God,
Yeah.
But it's cool to see those guys.
That is cool.
Winning, and just even challenging themselves, right? Like losing's part of winning.
Yeah, it is. It's a part of the process.
Yeah. So I'm proud of all the guys that are pushing themselves and challenging themselves and just trying to get. One of the things that's different about our sports than business is our losses are very public.
Yeah.
And I think that is character building. Like if I go call somebody and they say they don't want to be my client, nobody ever knows. Right. Like if you had called me and said, I go, yeah, I don't want to do your podcast. No one knows.
Right.
Right? No one knows.
Yeah.
And like, you're not going to badmouth me and I'm not going to badmouth you. We're just not going to talk about it.
Just is what it is.
Right. But like if you put it out there on blast and I'm super important, like I'm Conor McGregor or Dustin Poirier or whoever, and then I'm like, with my gazillion followers go, who's Adam Meredith? Can't believe this. Then it's public, right? It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
The win or the loss, right?
Right.
So when you fight or when you compete,
you're exposed.
And it's man on man, and you can't. It's not like the quarterback can blame the tackle or the point guard can blame the center.
Right.
It's you and me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a character building part of that other athletes don't understand. And it's not even like tennis. Like this is, you are imposing your will on me.
Yes.
And, whatever game we're playing, whatever sport we're playing, it's, that's one of the things I like about wrestling. Like you can't play wrestle. Like you can play basketball, you can play football. You just wrestle.
Right.
The verb is wrestling.
Right.
Wrestle.
Yeah.
So, that says a lot about it, right?
100%.
And life's a fight. Every day you wake up, you got to fight.
Yeah.
This everybody gets a ribbon thing is not realistic, right?
No, that's not how we operate in this household.
Well, it's not how we operate. That's not how winners operate, period.
Right.
Period.
Yeah, period.
Yeah. Like, look, man, we're going to spar, and you're going to win or I'm going to win.
Yeah,
we're going to both learn, but if we keep score, one of us won.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. And, you're not going to go put it out on Twitter if you beat me or I beat you, but, if you hand it to me that day, I'm like, man, I got to get better.
Yeah.
I need to learn from that guy.
It's important, man. So my daughter's doing basketball this summer, and granted, she doesn't really want to do basketball, but I feel like it's important. She wants to do volleyball, so I have her in all of it. But either way, she's doing it. Her team just lost by 40 points, dude. It was embarrassing.
That's rough.
It was like 40-something to 6 points.
Oh, wow.
It was bad.
Yeah.
And she was not happy. She didn't feel good. But I'm like, that feeling that you're feeling good, sit with that. And if you don't want to feel that way, then we need to work harder and do better.
And write it down. Write down how you feel.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But, that's what my dad told me when I didn't place at state. He goes, write down everything you think you do well enough to be a state champion, and then write down all the things you think you don't do well enough to be a state champion. He goes, and don't write down like I'm good on my feet or I need to get better on like specifics. Like jiu-jitsu, right? Like for me, I'd be like, in no-gi jiu-jitsu, my list would be, I'm very good in tie-ups. I'm good enough in open. My takedown defense is excellent. Okay? I'm fairly good at breaking guard. I'm fairly good at passing. I have little and no submissions from the top. On the bottom, I have really no submissions unless you're terrible. I'm pretty good at getting up, and I'm pretty good at not getting mounted.
Okay.
Now, we'd put a lot more specifics than that, but just for
you broke down every
But
area.
for your audience who's a jiu-jitsu. So I had this list, and I had I probably had one column of stuff I thought I was good at, and 2 columns, maybe 2.5 columns, what I wasn't good at. So he took 2/3 of my good column and put it on the bad column. And then he said, now reorganize these by position and situation. And that's all we did for a year.
Oh, wow. That's an amazing approach.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that'll teach, they teach not systematically.
Yeah.
So if Mike brought me in to teach wrestling for a day, not that you guys don't have wrestling coaches, but hey, you want to teach, I wouldn't teach an arm drag, for jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't teach an arm drag and then teach a headlock and then teach a double leg.
Right.
They're not connected.
You'd build a system.
Well, it's hey, you teach a double leg. Now here's what happens if you get caught short. Here's an elbow off. Here's a short drag. Here's a fake double to a high crotch. Here's how to get your hands locked.
Yeah.
Here's how to climb your way out. Here's how to get from here and sit underneath the guard. Like, I know how to get to guard in a lot of positions. I don't like being there,
Right.
but you probably would be great there.
Yeah. So you teach it.
Yeah, I teach it. Just because I'm not good at it doesn't mean I shouldn't teach it.
Right.
And I'll say that. I'm like, look, as soon as I teach you this, you're going to be better at it than me.
Yeah.
And guys appreciate that. You know, guys appreciate, like, okay, I'm not, like, I work with Mario and Cusick, Kim, every week. And I tell them, like, once we get here, Kyle's your coach.
Yeah.
And I'm your cheerleader.
Yeah.
And I think they actually respect that.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I know I've been doing a fair amount of teaching with jiu-jitsu the past, I don't know, a few years now. And I'll tell people all the time, like, there's more than one way usually to handle a situation. And I'm just teaching you this way. It doesn't necessarily mean what you're bringing to me is wrong or what this other person presented is wrong. It's just this is what we're doing right now. And there's all these different options in between. Like, there's never just one way to do a thing usually.
Yeah, my dad is really good at that too. Like, he'll be like, I'm trying to think of like a jiu-jitsu position that's like in wrestling, front headlock, right? Like, you take a shot, I shoot, you down block, right?
Yeah, that
happens in every match. Okay, so fine. So you have to win that position from both guys' spots, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to win the position when you're underneath the shot, and you have to win the position when you have the front headlock or chin and elbow. So it's not one thing that works, right? If there's only one thing that worked, that's all everybody would do.
Mm-hmm.
And if it worked, either people would stop shooting or people would stop sprawling, right?
Right.
So there isn't one thing that works. But there are things that work more often than others.
Exactly.
There are things that work better for your body type than others. Okay? But when we really started accelerating our teaching and kids got better quickly was helping them win positions. And we didn't teach positions that you don't get in very often. Like in wrestling, you're like, here's how we win a 30-second ride. Here's how we get out a 30-second ride. Here's how we defend single leg up in the air. Here's how we finish single leg up in the air. Here's how we defend high crotch. Here's how we finish high crotch. Here's how we win front headlock off the shot. Here's how we win front headlock off the defense. Okay, and here's tactics on the edge of the mat.
Okay.
All those happen in every match.
Yeah.
Then when you wrestle live, you kind of figure out the other stuff.
Right, you just fill it in.
Yeah.
Man, that's a great approach.
Yeah, so there's an approach to jiu-jitsu like that, right? Like, there's positions that happen all the time, right? Like, you need to know half guard.
Yeah, you know half guard, side control,
Butterfly guard, right?
Butterfly guard is a great guard, yeah.
But like for me on top, right? Like, if like, okay, you got to be able to pass, you got to be able to break full guard, you got to be able to stop a guy that's butterflying you. You got to
you got to be able to even work from open guard or half guard, yeah.
All these things,
Yep.
like, look, I'm a wrestler. I want a knee cut. Like, that works until this happens. The guy passes your elbow. Now he's got your back, right?
Right.
So do that. Understand this is the counter, and then be ready to cut him off at the pass.
Right.
I think when you can make the other guy predictable, then it's very easy to win.
Right.
Like, people don't even understand this, but like in wrestling, as soon as you get in your stance, I'm probably not attacking your back leg.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
but people don't think about that.
I mean, that's your furthest leg.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, now, if my shot is better to that side, I might try to move you to bring that leg forward, but I'm not just going to dive to your back leg.
Right.
So I don't have to really, like, I'm really, really good at defending this leg. I'm really, really average at defending this leg.
Which one's your lead leg?
This one.
That's your lead leg?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, I'm really good at it. Like, I can just let you grab it any way you want, and I'll probably end up putting you on your back. But it's because I've been there 10,000 times.
Yeah.
So, so if you understand that, you're like, okay, let's work on, okay, how do I defend this? What are the things we're doing to defend a lead leg? Whether it's just block, front headlock, whether it's quarter Nelson, in fighting, whether it's a straight choke, whether it's a darce, whether it's, barbed wire, whether it's a limp leg and spin, all these different things, whether it's a cutback when your leg's in the air, all these different things. And, whether it's back hamstring, chase the far ankle, all these different scenarios. But you need to know how to stop this.
Yeah.
Because this is your lead leg.
Dude, you are an encyclopedia. You just rambled off all these different scenarios like that.
Well, but that's
I know.
yeah. But
I
mean,
love it. I just appreciate it.
yeah. Well, I mean,
love
that's
it.
the thing, right? If you like it, it's not work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think then again, like that's why guys like me to coach them because I'm like, look, like I go, I think this would work best for you, Adam, because you're a little bit taller. But try
Mm-hmm.
it. Try it 10 times.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, just grab me.
Do you always give your why whenever you're explaining your things?
I think the why is more important than the what.
Okay.
Because so you've competed,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So when you compete, how often are you calm? Not as often as you'd like to be.
No, never.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, not never. You're
Well, not
probably getting
never.
better,
Yeah.
but not 100% of the time, right?
Right.
And when you're calm is usually when you don't need to be because you're just kicking the guy's ass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're up 9-0, it's super easy to have clarity, right?
Yeah.
When
you're
it's
relaxed.
4-2 or 4-4 or 2-6,
Yeah.
My
whole idea is how quickly can I get to that calm place? Because then I can think.
Well, the easiest way to be calm is to make the other guy predictable.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah.
Because if you know what's coming, there's nothing to be excited about.
Yeah, because it's the fear of the unexpected that usually
Yeah.
takes you to that place.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you see a lot of our guys fight or wrestle or, I guess, fight, BJJ, same verb, fight,
Yeah.
our goal is to make them predictable, is to make the opponent predictable. And when we do that, like it's very, like when you're on your feet in wrestling, you don't circle to the guy's lead leg because that's where he can shoot.
Right.
Okay, but in MMA, like if you and me were in an MMA fight,
Yeah.
I would circle to your lead leg
Right, because the power hand is your rear.
because I'm circling away from your power, and
Yeah.
I don't really care if you shoot on me. I actually want you to shoot on me.
Yeah. It works
Okay.
out both ways.
Right. Yeah, it's a two-way win for me, right?
Yeah.
The wrong way is now I'm walking into I'm assuming you're right-handed.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a left leg lead, I'm a right leg lead, so our lead legs align.
Right.
Okay, so if I go this way, you have to punch across your body.
Mm-hmm.
There's no power. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that low kick, it's harder for you to get to it,
Yep.
right? Or that inside kick, right?
Yep, the inside leg kick.
Okay,
Yep.
and the inside kick is the harder one to catch as a wrestler. The outside one I can catch
Right.
and drive. Okay, if I go this way, I'm circling into your kicks,
Right.
and you can kick this leg,
I
which
kick
is a
that far leg too.
bad problem
That's a bad one.
because I'm not used to defending that.
Right.
Okay, I'm walking into your punch. Okay,
Yeah.
and you're not going to shoot, which is what I wanted you to do anyway.
Right.
Okay. Now, not everybody's the same as me. Not everybody's, subpar striking and very good wrestling defense. But when you just explain that to guys, when you explain enough things a smart way, guys just eventually listen to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And like like you said, the smart way is just, it's very rational the way you're putting it. Like it all makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And, like that's, I think, like when I was studying jiu-jitsu, I was always like, why? Like, why? Why do I not put my hands on the ground?
Yeah.
Like, I know you're telling me don't do it, and I'll listen to you, but I need to understand the why.
Yeah. To fully make sense.
Well, like, okay, in jiu-jitsu, and again, you're but smart. When you're in closed guard, okay, if I'm in your closed guard, there's not very many submissions, right?
Right. I hate close guard.
Okay, but I'm saying
Right.
if I'm in your closed guard, that's the time for me to attack.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I can't do a whole lot with my guard.
But if
post.
okay, you're my coach, and you go, when he closes his guard, attack. I'm like, why? Well, you should be able to say to me because the most common submissions are arm bars and triangles, and for both of those things to happen, the guy has to unhook his feet.
Yeah.
Okay, like that's super simplistic, but that's the point, right?
Right.
So when you feel his feet hook, this is the time to start breaking guard.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I go, okay, that makes sense. Or if I don't understand an armbar triangle, I'm like, show me. Like, do it on somebody else so I can watch. I'm like, oh, okay. Because that's actually what happened. I'm like, show me. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. And they're like, okay, now if he's an open guard, this is the time to probably make small marginal improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Get him frustrated. Get him to reset. When he resets, that's when you attack.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be smart right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You're just connecting dots.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is like we'd get guys on top, and they would throw as hard as they could. And I go, don't do that. And they're like, why? I'm like, because that's when you get extended.
Mm-hmm.
That's when guys can sweep you. That's when guys can get arm triangles. That's when your punches are so much more powerful going down.
Mm-hmm.
And the referee's job, he's going to stop the fight a lot faster You know, if you punch me 3 times here, they're not going to stop it.
Yeah.
If you punch me 3 times here, they're about 2 punches away from stopping it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they can see the difference.
Well, my head's bouncing.
Yep.
My head's not going back. My head's bouncing. So there's a big difference. So understanding that stuff is good. And then, like, I know I haven't looked at, like, I saw you at EJ Brooks on your pod.
Yep.
So, like, I coached against EJ.
Mm-hmm.
I've coached him, like, and we've done a clinic together.
Yeah.
Like, he's good at different things than I am. So, like, I'll be like, EJ, show me what you did there.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, Coach, why do you do it this way? And, I don't know if it affected him. I don't know if it affected me. But maybe I can't do what he does, but I coach somebody. I'm like, man, that'd be good for that guy.
Right.
And I'm good at remembering technique.
Mm.
So I'll be like, Adam, I got to show you the slick thing that EJ did.
Yeah, because chances are, like you said, it's not good for you, but you'll probably come across somebody that can help.
Yeah, that's why I like David and Evan and those guys, because, like, I would, like, and rest in peace, but Rashard Lovelace.
Yeah, he was a great dude.
He trained with Evan. And I would show them a situation, and they were each better at different things. So I would show Evan this way and Rashard this way.
Mm.
In the beginning, they're like, why are you showing? I'm like, fine, try the other guy's way. And I'm like, yeah, we don't like that. I'm like, I know what you're good at.
Right.
But go ahead. That's fine.
Go figure it out.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. This isn't, I'm just trying to save you time. I know this is going to work better for you, and this is going to work better for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Dang, man. Well, dude, I want to be respectful of your time.
Okay.
We're actually coming up on 2 hours.
Oh, I got to move.
I know, dude. You got to go.
I got to Zoom at 3.
Oh, dude. Yeah, and we're at 2:39. So I want to be respectful of your time. Dude, is there anything you wanted to leave the people with? Places to check you out. I'm gonna put all the show notes, like links in the show notes to your podcasts, and but
just come to Border Brawl. If they just come to the charity event, it's Missouri Border Brawl on Facebook. Our page got taken down. We had like 3,000 likes. We had to build it back up, so we're only like a couple hundred right now. But we're going to do a big social push after Fargo. Mike Rogers, like I told you, I think everybody in your community knows Mike.
Yep.
I think the fact that Mike is aligned with us says a lot about what we're doing.
That's awesome.
Randy Couture is going to come in town for it.
Oh, cool.
We're going to do the pre-party at Ballpark Village. Shout out to Marcus Owen for setting that up down there. So we'll have like a UFC watch party. We're going to have like silent auction items.
Oh, rad.
Yeah, it's going to be super cool. And again, like all the money goes to a good cause. So people can buy tickets. We're also going to have a Facebook store where people can buy like hats and T-shirts and everything else. And we're sponsored by Nike, so we have really cool gear that we're selling. Yeah, like this stuff here. So Grant Turner from Nike, one of the best guys in the business, helped us outfit David for his last fight. So
he was looking clean.
David's a good-looking dude. The rest of us had to get Shorty's a good-looking dude too.
They both are handsome gentlemen.
Yeah, but me and Carlin had to get it cleaned up right. So that's the main thing. And if people want to watch the pods, it's just I think we're on Apple Podcast and Android Podcast or whatever. We're on all those platforms. We're on YouTube. So our pods are going great, man. We're super excited with the numbers. But yeah, we're just I'm proud of what you're doing. This stuff's not as easy as people make it. As people like you make it look. People, you do a good job. I try to do a good job, and you always pick people's brains and you learn. Like I just crossed over 200 episodes on the weekly chat and 100 episodes. I would tell people if they really want to understand about martial arts, we just interviewed my dad.
Yeah.
For the 100th episode.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you watched that one, but
I didn't get to watch it. I started to listen to a little bit of it, but
I would encourage people to watch that one.
Okay.
It was it's probably the best explanation of why he is the way he is and why I am the way I am.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't gotten to it. I listened to the one that you did for Asian and Pacific Islands.
Yeah.
Obviously, that one was interviewing you, so
yeah,
I wanted to kind of dive into your
yeah.
background.
Well, they let us do for AAPI month. We got to interview my dad. They interviewed me, and then I got to interview Tadaka Hata, who was an Olympic gold medalist from Oklahoma State.
Oh, that's awesome.
So he was great too. Those they all these guys mean a lot to me. Like when I started, people agreed to do my pod when we were doing it on a set of beats, plugged into a phone and recording it. So it's come a long way.
Yeah, man, you have a lot of great episodes out, man. So I'll put show notes in there.
I appreciate it, man.
And dude, thanks again, David. I
Always.
appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Till next time.